In this tutorial, we'll discuss a rather interesting question that came up in the comment section below a few days ago. Basically, the question was asking, how do we tell the type of a Tkinter object? If we have an object for a button and we have an object for a label, how do we know which one's which? Okay, how do we tell in our code which one is which? So this is particularly important when, for example, you call a function like this, or if you have your objects in an array, because actually what this function does is returns to us a list, an array of all the child widgets inside of it. So imagine that you have like 10 widgets inside your window and you call this function. It returns an array where you store all the widgets. But how do you know which widget is which? You have 10 widget objects, but you don't know which one's which. If you want to apply a specific operation on one type of widget, like a button, like you want to change the colors of the buttons, but you don't know which one's a button, which one's a label. So how do you figure that out? That's the point of this tutorial. So I'm going to show you two different ways of doing this. The first thing I'm going to do is create a label object, and we'll basically be using this object throughout the tutorial. Okay. The goal will be to find out the type of this label. Hello world can be the text. Okay, my label dot pack. Cool. Now, how do we tell that this is a label or not? Now, there are two ways of doing this. The first method is to use the isInstance function. It's a pretty popular function in Python used to compare data types and all that. You know, check the type of a variable of an object. Okay, so the first parameter is the object and the second parameter is the class. Okay, so we're basically checking here, we're saying, is this object an instance, is it an object of this class? If it is, then we'll say yes, it is a label, and we'll execute whatever code we want to on our my label object. Okay, like changing the color or whatever. And we'll just turn this to no, it is not a label. Cool. So if I run this code now, it says yes, it is a label. All right. Now this is the first method. Now there's actually a second method which I prefer a little bit more, and that's because it actually returns to us winfo class. It returns to us a string containing the type of the widget. So if we just, this is a function, by the way. I'll also print this out here just so that you can see. Okay, and this prints out label, and then it says yes, it is a label because this condition was true. And the isInstance function, by the way, returns a Boolean value. It returns true or false depending on whether the object was object of that class or not, right? So that's something to keep in mind. If you want a string version, then you need to use this function. And one more thing I should have pointed out earlier, by the way, just undo. If you import Tkinter directly like this, you'll need to do Tkinter.label, okay? Because you need to keep in mind the namespaces over here. Okay, similarly, you will need to change that and so on. Just don't make that mistake, okay? It's an easy mistake to make. Now, one more thing I will point out, and let's just redo that. You can also use the type function. And what the type function does is returns this rather weird version. Okay, you may have seen people using this, you may have used this yourself. I personally don't really like using this because it's kind of weird. The string that it returns is kind of weird and hard to use in comparison and in if statements. So I don't personally use it, but I just thought I'd mention it. All right, and that's it. That's the point of this tutorial. You now know how to differentiate between different widgets and how to classify them. Okay, so you know how to filter through an array, for example, and look for the labels or the buttons, etc., etc. Okay. Hope you found this video interesting, and if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you thought, and I hope to see you guys in a later video. Bye then.